Hello and welcome back to Jewels Knits for Bamma. I'm Jules and this is my podcast where I talk about all my knitting and crafting adventures. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by, and if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I'm really excited to be recording today because I didn't think I would actually have time to do it this week, but some time presented itself to me, so I took the opportunity. I am a little sick right now. I have a cold, so if I sound a little funny or my vibe is different, I'm really sorry, but I just didn't want to pass up the opportunity to record. So today I'm wearing a finished object. This is the Whisper sweater by Max the Knitter, and there's so many things I want to share with you about it, but I'm going to stand up so you can see it first. Look at all the colors. I'm so in love with this sweater. So I knit this sweater using scraps from Westknit MCAL shawls of years past. I've been saving all the scraps for quite a few years, and I knew that I wanted to knit them all in one project, but I wasn't sure what that project was. And then inspiration hit me, so I decided to make a sweater out of them. So I had a sweater to wear to Rhinebeck Day 2. And I ended up finishing this just in time to wash and block it and have it dry before we left for Rhinebeck. So the pattern is a DK weight pattern. So what I did, because all these scraps are fingering weight, is I held them double. So like for this section right here, I did 2 strands of this blue and then 1 strand of this blue and 1 strand of this blue to create this, and then 2 strands of this. And that's kind of how like I merged them all together. And then I ended up running out of yarn to do the sleeves, so I just ran to my local yarn store and grabbed 2 balls of Plymouth Yarn Encore DK, which is like a wool acrylic blend, just to finish off the sleeves because it was something that I could get my hands on quick so I could finish on before Rhinebeck. I did make a few changes to the pattern. So the first thing that I did was I went up a size or 2 so I had more positive ease than the pattern suggested. And then I also did no decreases on the sleeves. I just knit them straight until I got to the cuff, where I did a rapid decrease to get to the stitch count that I needed to do the cuff. I also did, I don't know if you can see very well, but I also did the sewn bind off on the cuffs and the hem, and then I did the tubular cast on the neckline. Another thing that I really love about this sweater is the raglan detail right here. He does, I don't know how to explain it, but I thought that was really pretty and a really fun little detail. And that's one thing I really do love about Max's patterns, is all the little details that he puts in. So I'm so happy to have this. It's super cozy. It's definitely out of my color comfort zone, but I'm really glad I made it. And I can't wait to like snuggle up with some hot cocoa and watch the snow off, from inside off my couch in this sweater this winter. My second finished object I don't actually have with me because they need to be washed because I wore them to Rhinebeck, but I'll put a picture right here. I knit these socks with my friend McKaylee of Breaking Yarn. We both discovered that we had the same sock set, and she was like, hey, do you want to do a little knit along? And I was like, sure. And I was very addicted to the pattern and ended up finishing them the night before Rhinebeck. So I washed them and threw them on some sock blockers, and they were dry in the morning. So I took them off the sock blockers and wore them to Rhinebeck. Anyone who's been watching me for a minute knows that I generally do vanilla socks. But sometimes when I'm in a sock funk, a pattern sock is what gets me out of my sock funk. And this did just that. It was a pattern. It was really intuitive though. And it was easily, like, maybe by like halfway down the leg, I had the pattern memorized, and I just absolutely loved this pattern. So if you're looking for a pattern sock that's not complicated, that's really intuitive, I would highly suggest going and checking out McKaylee's sock patterns because they're all really great. And I'm really glad that I got to knit along with my friend. But that's all I have for FOs this week. Because I've mainly been exclusively working on my Westknit MCAL. I mean, I've done other things, but that's where most of my attention has gone to. So I'm going to grab my whips and then I'll be right back to show you those. So my first whip, I think you guys saw last time, is this muscle burra that I'm making for my husband's coworker. I don't have the ball band anymore, but I do know that this is Wonderland Yarns. I just can't remember the colorway. I'm really sorry. I think I said it in the last podcast. So You can go back and check there if you want to know. But I haven't really been working on it that much, just like school pick-up and drop-off lines. And then I brought this to Rhinebeck with me on Saturday. And I think I was like somewhere in here when I got to Rhinebeck. So I've got a good probably 2 inches, 3 inches that I added just by walking around during the day at Rhinebeck. And as I suspected I would be, I'm playing a little bit of yarn chicken. This is all I have left. So I think that I'm going to have to add another. I'm just going to grab something that's like a similar color out of my scrap bin and add it in when I run out of this to finish it off. And then just have that like be the inside of the hat. But that is a muscle burra, because what would a Jewels Knits for Bamma podcast be without a muscle burra? So this one you guys are going to laugh at me, but I am still on, I think last time I podcasted, I had just gotten past the heel. This is still sock number 1. I'm knitting these as a Christmas present for someone in my family. And I do have the ball band for this one. This is Knits for Comfort in the colorway One World. I don't know if that's gonna, I don't know. This is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And then the heel and the toe are just a random mini that I had in my scrap bin. I'm almost done with the heel, and I'm almost done, not the heel, I'm almost done with the toe, and then I have to cast on the second one. So I'm hoping that the second one goes faster than this, because I'm pretty sure I've had this cast on for I've had it in 2 previous podcasts, so probably like 6 weeks that I've had this. It's taken me 6 weeks to get 1 sock done, which is crazy, but that's okay. I didn't have sock mojo, and then I was completely distracted by the other socks that I was knitting because they were so beautiful and I love the pattern so much. So that is whip number 2. My third whip is living in this crazy knit lady bag that my friend Corinne got for me for Christmas last year. And this one you guys haven't seen yet because I just cast it on last night. And when I say I just cast it on, like, I've got maybe 2 rows on it so far. And this is going to be the Lace and Fade Boxy by Hoagie Locatelli. And I did have to get some acquisitions for this because I didn't have the colors I needed. So I'm going to put a picture of the finished, of Hoagie's version, so you can kind of see what we're working with. But it's basically a 5 skein fade in hers. Mine's not really a fade, it's just kind of coordinating colors. But this is the colors, these are the colors that I decided to do for mine. So these are Cascade Yarns 220 fingering, and I think, yep, 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and I think the colorway names are just numbers. Yes, the colorway names are just numbers. But I got this, so it goes this kind of white, beige, off-white color to like a more tan, to this kind of mint green, which I'm not really sure about the mint green, but the other color that I had picked out for it, they didn't have enough, and I was being impatient, so I didn't want to wait for it to get ordered. And then to this kind of bluey-ish green, to this darker, kind of more teal green. And then the lace sections, I've got Lana Grossa, Silk Haze, Super Kid Mohair, and again, it's just a number for a colorway, but it's kind of like this tan. So this is going to be the Lace and Fade Boxy by Hoagie Locatelli, and I'm really excited. It's not very often that I splurge this much on a sweater for myself. Most of the time, if I'm making a sweater, I go with something simple, or I use what I have in stash. So I was really excited to have all of this, and I can't wait to have it as a finished garment. So I've got a ton more whips, but none of them have really been worked on because I've been so focused on my West Knit MCal. So that's what I'm going to show now. This is my last whip. If you haven't seen Clue 2 yet, then I'll put a little timestamp for you if you don't want to be spoiled. But I'm going to talk about that now. So for my West Knit MCal, I'm using Kelborn woolens in their camper yarn, which is 100% wool. And I've got, let's see, Sunflower Heather. And this one is Gray Heather. And this one is Mulberry Heather. So these are my 3 colors that I'm using. And I'm going to show it now. Ready? Da, 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 da. So this is what we've got done so far. It's kind of funky right now because obviously it hasn't been blocked, but also he had us put these on. He didn't have us bind them off. He had them put on stitch holders. So, don't know what we're going to do there. But the first clue was this middle stripy chevron section, and then all of this and these cable bits were clue 2. And I'm not sure how I feel about this right now, but I'm just going to keep going with it because I trust Stephen West. And I thought the same thing last year with the shawlography and the little yarn shrimps, and I ended up loving the shawlography. So I'm just going to keep going. The one thing I do have to say is, like, I was knitting this part of the shawl and thinking, oh my gosh, this is a Gryffindor scarf. Which kind of bummed me out because I'm a Hufflepuff, but that's okay. And then this part, this was super cool. So I'm not sure if you're not doing the make along, you can still see the technique. So I don't think on the YouTube videos that he does, I don't think I'm giving anything away. But in this section, he had you do the chevrons. And then for this, he would just like cast off a bunch of stitches and then on the way back, cast them back on. So I ended up making like all these little holes. And I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because I don't read through the pattern or watch through the video. Like, I don't know what the clue looks like finalized until I'm done because I don't want to spoil myself. So when we got to the end and like kind of, you could see here, like he looped them all through to make these braids. I was like, oh my gosh, that's genius. But then we did this part that looks like a Gryffindor scarf. And then we did the cables, which are pretty. It's a lot of picking up stitches this year for sure. And a lot of I-cord bind-offs. But I can't wait to see what we do for Clue 3 because I'm wondering because we just left these here, so I'm sure we're going to do something fun with them. But I've been like anxiously waiting to see what we do with those. So that is my West Knit MCal, and I think by the next time I podcast, this will be all over, and hopefully I'll finish it on time, and we'll see. Let's chat about acquisitions real quick, and then I'll hop into just Rhinebeck chat and normal chat. So I only got 2 acquisitions other than the yarn I got from my Lace and Fade Boxy. A couple weeks ago, right after I podcasted, my mother-in-law was looking for yarn for her West Knit MCal shawl. So we went around to a few yarn stores, and she picked up this Dream in Color smooshy cashmere for me, which I absolutely love. She had like a whole batch, the yarn store had like a whole batch of this that she was selling very cheap because it got like damaged in shipping. And I don't really see like where the damage is in this. I guess it is a little bit right there, but my mother-in-law grabbed it for me because it was so discounted. And I think, like, how awesome is that? Like, so what if it has like a few spots? Like, you can totally cut around those, you know what I mean? So she got me that, and then I decided I was going to grab some more Wonderland. So I grabbed this one, which is Marianne. This is the sock fingering. It's 85 superwash, 15% nylon. And this is the color Shillings and Pence. And I realized after we left, like, oh my gosh, how well do these colors go together? Like, there's nothing better to me than an orange and a blue together. So I'm thinking that those might have to be something, but I'm not sure what. So if you have any ideas, let me know. That's all I have for yarn content right now. So if you were just here for that, thanks for coming by, and I hope to see you next time. And if you want to stay and chat about Rhinebeck and a few other fun things going on in my life, then let's talk. So let's talk about Rhinebeck weekend. It was so fun. I had one of the best times of my life. It was definitely an experience and something I want to do again next year. It was my first time at Rhinebeck, so there are a few takeaways that I got from that and a few things that I want to incorporate into my trip next year. And I just dropped a stitch, so that's cool. No big deal, I'll just pick it up. Okay, sorry. So there's two things that I want to say about Rhinebeck. First off, I didn't vlog. I know I said that I was going to try and vlog on the last podcast, and I did make an honest effort, but we got there Saturday and there was so many people there. I just couldn't. I was so overwhelmed by the amount of people there that I just couldn't. I was experiencing it all, and I was forgetting to pull out my camera, and by the end of the day, I only had like 3 little clips recorded, and I was like, okay, that means I'm not vlogging. Like, it's cool. And I'm okay with that because I know that like I really soaked it up and enjoyed the experience of being at Rhinebeck. And I can always vlog next year because I'm definitely going back next year. But the other thing is I didn't buy anything. And I know you're saying, Jules, how did you go to Rhinebeck and not buy a single thing? And my answer to that would be, I don't know. What I do know is that I'm kind of a homebody, and I knew that Rhinebeck was going to be a lot of people. I didn't realize when people said that Saturday had a lot of people that it was that many people. I was watching a Rhinebeck vlog this morning. I can't remember who it was. I watched a few, but one of the people that I watched said there was an estimated 35,000 people there on Saturday, which like blows my mind. I believe it, because in the buildings it was like breathing room only. There was a lot of people, so that was kind of overwhelming to me. But also I think people tell you Rhinebeck is big, right? Like everyone talks about how big it is and how many places there are and the food, but it's hard to imagine quite how big until you're there. I couldn't choose because there was so many choices. And our original plan was to kind of go around all the buildings and see what there was and then go back to the things that we really wanted. And it took us almost all day to get around the buildings. And every time I went into a new building, like there was a new thing that I was like, ooh, I want that. Ooh, I want that. And I couldn't end up deciding what I wanted. So what I ended up doing is just taking a mental note of like the things that I liked and the businesses that had the things I liked. And I would like to try and order online from them, you know, over the next couple, you know, over the next year until Rhinebeck. And then next year, I think what my plan is going to be is to go in there with some projects in mind and buy specifically for projects, because then I think it will be easier for me to narrow down what I buy. So if you've never gone to Rhinebeck and you plan on going next year, that's one thing that I highly suggest, is have a plan. But other than that, those are like the two of the big things that I wanted to share with you right off. But now I'll just kind of tell you a little bit more about the day. So we decided, because it was all of our first time at Rhinebeck, we decided we were just going to do Rhinebeck this year. We didn't do any of the Friday stuff like Cake-a-Palooza or Indian Tangled or Woolen Folk. I think next year we plan to do the Woolen Folk and go Friday, but this year we just decided to go to Rhinebeck Saturday and Sunday. And so Cecilia and Corinne and Drew and myself all met up at my house at like 6 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning. And we made it down to Rhinebeck at about 9, right after the gates opened. So we had a little bit of a line, but not a super long line. I also think that we didn't, because of the way we came in and where we ended up parking, I don't think we ended up at like the main gate, so that might have contributed to not having to wait into such a huge line, because other people are saying that they had to wait like a half hour or 45 minutes from when it opened to actually get in because the lines were so big. We didn't experience that. But what I will say is driving in was super weird, because you're like driving through this little neighborhood. Like, it's a neighborhood. Like, cars everywhere, houses right next to each other, like a real neighborhood. And then all of a sudden it just opens up and it's this huge fairground. It's in like, you wouldn't think that that's where it is. And it was just surprising to me. I was like, the GPS is saying we're almost there, but like, where did they fit a giant fairground in this neighborhood? So anyways, we got there, we found a place to park, and we walked in, and the first stop we made was Jenny the Potter, because it was right by the gate that we walked in, and Corinne really wanted these little sheep bowls that she had made before they sold out, so we went and did that. And then we kind of just went through all the buildings on like the top half, and it wasn't super crowded at that point, because I think we came in on the back side, so I think everybody else was on more of the front side. It wasn't super crowded at that point. And then we went down this little hill, and there was a guy doing blacksmithing. So we sat and chatted with him and watched him do that for a while, because my husband was really into that. And there was like a museum there, and there were so many fun things. And then we walked down this little hill, and it's like this little dip, and then it goes back up a hill, and it was like all the people. Like, so many people. The souvenir tent, the line was already, I can't even tell you how long. Like, up a hill, on a flat, like, it was a long line. And by that point, it was probably like 11 o'clock, and we were all kind of getting hungry. So my husband got this lamb sandwich that the blacksmith suggested, and he absolutely loved it. Cecilia and Corinne got some food, I got some food, and we kind of sat and ate. And I was really sad because I missed the llama parade because I was eating, but I could kind of see it like from the top of the hill, so I got to see it, just not like up close. But after that, we kind of walked back down and decided we were going to try and figure out what the hill is, because there was people that were going to meet up on the hill that we wanted to meet. And I walked by the souvenir line, and I saw Maddie from We Share Needles in the souvenir line. And I like stood there because I was kind of starstruck. Like, I was like, can I walk up to her? Like, what? But my friend Cecilia has like no fear, and she doesn't watch a lot of knitting podcasts. So the people that me and Corinne were like, oh my God, they're famous. Like, how do we talk to them? Cecilia wasn't afraid to talk to them. So she was kind of our buffer for the day. And she walked up to Maddie, and she was like, oh, I love your bag, because she was wearing a Dosie's Market bag. And I was like, and I love your podcast. And I was like fangirling for like the next 2 hours, because we just kept running into people that like I watch on a podcast. So I ended up meeting Maddie and Kristen from We Share Needles. They're both wonderful, nice human beings. And let's see, who else did we meet? We got to meet Vanessa from Nitty Witch, and we met the Grocery Girls, which was pretty cool. And I'm trying to think, who else did I meet? Oh, Teresa from Pretty Twisted Yarns. I got to meet her. Oh, and you know what? That reminds me. She gave us a goodie bag. So let me see. Let me grab. I got some goodies. So there was, let's see. So Nitty Witch was giving out these little stitch markers to people. And then there was this one woman who was walking around and absolutely loved her sweater. So Cecilia walked up to her and asked her what her sweater was, and it turns out she was the designer of that sweater, and it wasn't out yet. But she gave us her card. So her name is Alexis Winslow, and Knit Darling, and this is her card. I don't know if it's gonna focus. Did it focus? There it goes. So I have to go follow her on Ravelry or Instagram or something so that I can get that sweater pattern. And then the grocery girls gave us the little grocery girl sheep sticker, which I thought was so cute. And then Teresa from Pretty Twisted Yarns, she was giving out these cute little pins, which has her logo on it. I don't know if that's gonna load. And then, which we all know I love pins and stickers. And then her sticker. And then she also put in here a little discount code for anyone who wants to purchase some of her yarns. And it all came in this cute little bag, and I thought that was so fun. And then I also got to meet Chevis from Chevy Roll Stuff, and she was passing out these cute little coasters, and she ended up giving me and Corinne both two, so I'm going to keep one for myself. I'm never going to use it because Chevy Roll handed this to me, so it's definitely going to get hung up somewhere in the yarn room. But I'm going to keep one for myself, and I'm going to give one to my mother-in-law, who was going to go to Rhinebeck, but then ended up not going because she had to work the night before, a 12-hour overnight. I'm going to give one to her because she's a big Chevy Roll fan as well. So I was really excited. I think that's one of the coolest things about the knitting world, is that the people who we look up to and admire the most are people that like are just like us. Like when you're really into music and you have these people you love, like they're world famous, and the chances of ever meeting them and ever actually getting to experience them as like a person and not just someone you listen to or watch is pretty slim. But in the knitting world, like we get the opportunity to like meet our people and get inspiration and build relationships that a lot of other people and communities don't get to do. And I think that's just so cool. And the fact that Rhinebeck has become this little hub of like meetups and knitting friendships, like everywhere I looked, it's gonna make me like, why am I so emotional? Everywhere I looked, you could see people who they had been talking on Instagram or whatever, and they were meeting in real life for the first time and hugging, and just the amount of happiness and like joy that I could feel on that hill was so amazing. And just the love that was like vibrating off the hill, it was just so cool. And for that reason, like even if I go to Rhinebeck the rest of my life and never get a chance to buy anything, like for that reason alone, I will go to Rhinebeck every year for the rest of my life, because there's something about the fiber community that's so inclusive and so loving, and it just makes me so happy. So yeah, I spent a lot of time on the hill at Rhinebeck. We also saw the Needles at the Ready boys, Kevin and Ray, and Irina from Fiber Chats was there, and I'm trying to think of who else. Cabin Boy Knits were there. There was a ton of people that like I saw. Andrea Mowry was there, Nitty Natty. Like there was a ton of other people that I saw, but I knew that there were so many people there that I wanted to meet that it was kind of like overwhelming at a point. You know what I mean? Like I'm a super homebody. I'm not like a people-y person. I can handle so much excitement and like people, and then it becomes like overwhelming to me. So I had fun doing what I did, and maybe I'll get to meet some more people next year at Rhinebeck. But yeah, we had so much fun. Also, it was pretty cool because in the booklet they had like a little scavenger hunt, and I was kind of walking around and knitting, And someone was like, oh, look, there's someone knitting and walking. I guess that was like one of the scavenger hunt things, was like to find someone who was walking and knitting. So I got to help someone on their scavenger hunt. Also, there was like other things than just like yarn. Like there was woodworking stuff, and they had like an animal rescue there that had like kangaroos and an alligator and like cool fun stuff that might be fun like if you brought your kids along. And the amount of food that they had, like fried Brussels sprouts, pizza, lamb sandwiches, tacos, like anything you could imagine you wanted to eat, like it was there. And so we did all that. We had fun at Rhinebeck. I didn't get a lot of pictures or anything, but what I did get, I'm gonna like pop on to the end of this video so you can kind of see the pictures that I took. That is one thing I kind of wish I did more of. Like I wish I took more pictures, but again, like I was living in the moment and I was having fun, and I have the memories in my head, which is the most important part. So again, next year I'm going to try and take more pictures. But after Rhinebeck, it got to be like 3 o'clock, and like all of us were like, we can't walk anymore. Like our feet hurt, we were tired, and we're like, let's go do something else, because we had planned on like going back Sunday. And so we ended up going to a yarn store nearby. I think it's Saugerties, New York, I want to say. And I can't remember the name of the yarn store. Something in T. I can't remember. I'll put it down below. But we ended up going there, and I did buy one little skein of yarn, and I can't remember, Blue Sky Fibers, I think. Is that it? I don't know. My daughter has it because I bought it for her. So I did buy that. And then we went out for dinner. We ended up getting Indian food. And then we decided to go back to our Airbnbs, and Corinne and Cecilia had stayed in Woodstock, and our Airbnb was in Stanfordville, I think. So we went back to our Airbnbs, and then my friend Elle had texted me and been like, hey, we're in town, we're going to Rhinebeck tomorrow, like, do you want to go and get dessert with us? So me and my husband ended up going back into Rhinebeck at like 9 o'clock and got some really good cheesecake from this pizza place downtown, with my friend Elle and her mom. And then we went back to our Airbnb, and I crashed. I fell asleep. I was so tired. And we woke up the next morning, and we had kind of discussed it when we were eating dinner at the Indian place the night before. Like, we had all had our fun. We had had a lot of fun, and felt like we didn't really need to go back Sunday, which I kind of regret now, because I'm watching all the vlogs, and like there was not nearly as many people there on Sunday. So I feel like if I had gone back Sunday, I probably would have been able to get some yarn. But I'm also kind of glad I didn't go back Sunday, because I would have been even more exhausted. Like, the recovery from Rhinebeck took me like 2 days to like not be exhausted, because I just had so much fun. So we decided not to go back Sunday. So we all kind of woke up whenever we woke up, and then texted each other, and we met up at this little roadhouse, like a local roadhouse, and had some really good breakfast. And again, I'll put it down below because I can't remember what the name of the place was, but it was really good. Cider Bros Roadhouse, that's what it was. Cider Bros Roadhouse. It was so good. And the lady there was really nice. And then we kind of went on our merry way. Now here's a funny story. So Cecilia and Corinne went in one car, me and my husband went in another car, because Cecilia wanted her own car in case like something happened with her kid or whatever, like everyone didn't have to leave, so that, you know, it makes sense. So on the way up there, another thing about me, okay, I'm going to start over. So you've learned now that I'm not a people person and I have a hard time with crowds. And another thing about me is that I was in a rollover when I was 13. And I'm still pretty anxious in the car, and I'm especially anxious on the interstates. Like, I will not drive on an interstate, and luckily I live in the middle of nowhere where I don't have to drive on interstates. So if I'm ever going somewhere where there's an interstate, like, my husband normally comes with me so he can drive. But of course we were following Cecilia up there, and he was driving normal and she was driving normal, but like I was having a panic attack because that's how I am on the interstate. And so on the way back, I'm like, okay, well, like, we're all just going home. So I think me and Drew are going to kind of mosey our way back and like dilly-dally and maybe go like a different way that doesn't have so much interstate. So like if we get split up from you, like, don't wait around for us. And they're like, okay, well, so we did our hugs and, you know, we all talked about how much fun we had, and we went on our merry ways, and me and my husband stopped and got gas, and they went, and maybe like an hour and a half later, I get a text to the Rhinebeck group chat, and I'm like, uh-oh, like, we said goodbye, why are they texting me? Like, and we're not with them. Like, did they pop a tire or get in an accident? Or, because that's where like my anxious brain goes. Nothing of the above. What happened was I got a text because they stopped at a rest stop, and Corinne was wearing her pink fizz sweater. They stopped at a rest stop, and Andrea Mowry was there. They ran into Andrea Mowry at a rest stop, and she like complimented Corinne's pink fizz. And I was like, man, like, what are the odds of that, number one? And number two, why didn't we just follow them? Because I would have gotten to meet Andrea Mowry. But I thought that was so cool. And obviously it was exciting for Corinne because a lot of people look up to Andrea. And she's a pretty amazing designer. I don't think I know many knitters who haven't knit at least one of her designs. So I know there's like so much more that happened, but I'm drawing a blank because when I start to talk about Rhinebeck, I just get really excited and overwhelmed by it. And then I forget to say things, but also I have cold brain right now, so I'm probably forgetting things because of that. And now I'm just rambling about how I'm a very forgetful person. So we're going to move on. So Sunday night we got home and I was exhausted and I didn't feel like knitting because I was so exhausted. So I was just like scrolling on Ravelry and looking at patterns, and I decided to look at like my favorited patterns and remembered that I really wanted to make the lace and fade boxy. And so Monday my husband still had the day off, so I ended up going to the yarn store by myself and buying all that yarn for the lace and fade boxy. And yeah, I was okay to buy yarn then because like all the excitement was over and like I could think about what I wanted to do. And the thing was, is I just couldn't think about what I wanted to do when I was at Rhinebeck because I was just so excited. But once I was able to like sit there and like relax my brain and think about what it is that I wanted, I was able to figure it out. So I went and got some yarn for that. And then all day yesterday, I've been on vacation. I'm on vacation this whole week. So then all day yesterday, I sat at home and put off housework and knit on my clue too, because I didn't knit on it at all this weekend and I really didn't want to get behind, and I finished it, so I'm excited about that. So that was Rhinebeck weekend. So top tips from a Rhinebeck newbie. Number one, have a plan in mind for what you want. Number two, Sunday is way less crowded than Saturday if you're not a people person. Number three, make dinner reservations, because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to find anything anywhere within the general vicinity of Rhinebeck. And number four, and the most important one, is just have fun. Like, go with the flow, buy stuff if you're going to buy stuff, don't if you don't. just enjoy the experience, because there's like nothing quite like Rhinebeck. The weekend before Rhinebeck, we did apple picking, which had so much fun, and all the kids looked so cute in their little sweaters. And I just loved it. Like, I love apple picking. I didn't actually make applesauce this year, which I'm like, what? Why didn't I make applesauce? But here's what. It was the week before Rhinebeck. I was getting ready for Rhinebeck and trying to get my house spotless because my mom was staying here with the girls all weekend. And I was just so pumped for Rhinebeck. Like, I couldn't think about anything else. And that week I genuinely had like a pretty hard week at work. Like, I feel like we go like 2 or 3 weeks where it's like a pretty easy week, and then we have 1 week where I'm ready to rip out my hair, and then we have another couple weeks of like easy, and that just happened to be the 1 week that I was ready to rip out my hair. But it's normal. Like, human services, mental health, like any of this line of work, like sometimes it gets really stressful. That's just how it is. And you just have to be one of those people that can handle the stress and know that like what you're doing is making a difference in people's lives. So I didn't make applesauce this year. That's not to say that I won't. I think I will. I just think, look, I'm to the end of my yarn and it's yarn birthing now, so I'm going to wind this up. I think I will. It just didn't happen that week. And the kids had a great time. We stayed there for a really long time this year. And again, like, I'll pop pictures in of all the kids in their apple picking sweaters at the end. Because the baby, oh my gosh, the baby in his little cardigan, it was so cute. I can't. I had so much fun. I always have fun apple picking. Such great family memories are made in that apple orchard. So let's see, apple picking happened. I'm trying to think of like what else happened between now and then. Nothing really that I can think of. Halloween is coming up. Is everyone excited for Halloween? What are you going as? What are your kids going as? My daughter wanted to do Tom and Jerry, like, cause me and my husband always do like matchy costumes for the girls, and then we'll get like something little that kind of matches them, but we don't go all out for a costume. But my daughter wanted to be Tom and Jerry, and so I was like, sure, we can do that, because I generally make their costumes, so like finding costumes isn't hard when you make them, because you can just do whatever you want. And so like the day before I was gonna go and buy her costume stuff to make her costume, she was like, yeah, actually, I want me and Parker to be Carol Baskin and a tiger. And I was like, excuse me? Like, what? I'm like, how do you even know who Carol Baskin is? Well, apparently it's a thing at school. So now my daughter and my younger one are going to be Carol Baskin and a tiger, which I have mixed feelings about, but like, if it's what my kid wants to be for Halloween, then it's what my kid wants to be for Halloween. And I'm not going to deny her of that. And I keep looking over here because I have all the stuff that I bought for it. And let me tell you, shopping for her to be Carol Baskin was actually kind of fun, because like Parker's, I honestly cheated and got her a tiger costume, which I don't think I've ever done for her. I think this is the first time I've ever gotten a costume that I didn't make for her. But Ella's, I had to go to like 5 different stores to find all the things that we needed for her Carol Baskin outfit. And I don't know. I think it's going to be cute. Even though I have mixed feelings, I think it's going to be cute. So, what are you guys all doing for Halloween? I'm trying to think if there's what else there is to say. I might finish off this ball while I'm recording this podcast. Oh my gosh. So I was watching Chevy Rell's podcast maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. And she said something that she learned from watching someone else. And I like memory logged it in the back of my brain because I wanted to tell you guys, because it makes so much sense. And I'm probably going to sound like a blonde for never realizing this before. But when you're making sweaters, that you do the sleeves first. She said to tuck the sleeves inside the sweater so you're not always fiddling around with them when you're trying to knit in the round on the body. How genius is that? Like, and why have I never thought of that in my 20 years of being a knitter? So that, I don't know. That's just a random little tidbit of advice that I learned from watching someone else's podcast. That's really all the stuff I have to talk about this week, I think. I think there's a few more things that I could say, but like I said, I'm getting over this cold and it's starting to hurt a little bit to talk, so I think I'm just going to rest my voice and save it for next time. But I'm like super curious to know who's doing the West Knit MCal. If you are, did you buy the kit or did you make your own kit? How are you liking it so far? Have you been able to keep up with the clues? All that fun stuff. If you were at Rhinebeck, what did you think about Rhinebeck? Are you going back next year? What are your current whips? Like, I really want to know what's going on in your guys' knitting lives too. So comment down below and let me know. And I'm going to go and have a nap before my toddler wakes up. And then I'll wake up and edit this and get it up on the YouTubes so that you guys can see it. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful few weeks and I hope you get as much knitting done as you want. And I will see you then.